Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. You know, one thing I realized when I was creating my last tournament video is I really didn't do an intro, and I really didn't do, you know, an outro where I kind of talk and broke down the lake and kind of told you what was going through my mind during that tournament and the days leading up to the tournament during practice and stuff. I intentionally did not record during practice because going into the BFLs, the tournament size is a lot bigger with, you know, we had 152 anglers, so I didn't want to give up every spot, but I knew I did not have another tournament this year on Smith Mountain Lake, so I would release at least the tournament footage. So kind of going through my head, my game plan for this tournament is I wanted at least 3 days of practice. And so I drove up the Tuesday prior to that Saturday tournament, and I got up there late Tuesday evening, settled down for the evening, and then Wednesday morning bright and early I was out there on the lake. Let it be known, I've never been on this body of water before, so this lake was new. You know, learning how to run it, figuring out where the fish wanted to pull up and spawn. I knew this was going to be a pre-spawn event, so I wasn't worried about it being super shallow, but I was trying to find those staging points that had you know, quality fish that could possibly win this tournament. And so my game plan was first on day number one is safe navigation of the lake, but then also just locate some fish. And Wednesday, out of the 4 days that I fished that lake, was by far my best fishing day. Immediately my first cast in the morning, I pulled up to a spot that had some fish on it, which was a rocky point. Jerkbait across it, first fish, first cast, and it was almost a 4-pounder. So I knew I was in the right area, but I needed to kind of get some more cues of what those fish wanted to do. You know, do they want to go ahead and push all the way back to the pockets, or were they on, you know, secondary points leading into those pockets? So something I had to piece together that day, and throughout the day I kind of followed that pattern. I started at the beginning of some of these creek mouths and I worked my way in, and about mid creek is where most of my bites on Wednesday day of practice came from. And there was always some sort of rock, mostly rocky points and riprap. So what I did is that day I actually filled my 5-fish limit, and my 5 fish weighed 11 pounds on Wednesday, and that was not done intentionally. I was throwing a jerkbait and I was also throwing a crankbait. That's the way I wanted to catch them, and they were eating those baits that I chose to throw that day. What I was doing is those fish actually weren't, in practice, they weren't located right up against the riprap. They weren't positioned right up against the bank. They were kind of suspended in about 8 feet of water off that bank. And so what I would do is I would use the jerkbait to kind of lure them away from either the rock or where they were at to see them on the Mega Live, and I was using the Mega Live to target those fish. And usually I was finding them in pairs, and so I'd throw over there and I'd catch one of them. Once I caught one fish in an area and I located some fish about the same size, I left. I didn't catch another fish, so I didn't beat my spots to death, and I knew that was going to be key during this tournament. So then going into day 2 of practice, which is that Thursday, we had a weather system roll in, brought some high winds, brought a lot of rain, and dropped temperatures dramatically. Air temperatures, not really water temperatures. Water temps dropped only like 3 degrees, so it wasn't too bad. But then I got more like not a full day of practice on Thursday, but I got enough to say, you know, I eliminated a lot of water. So I ran all new places, and honestly that Thursday was not very productive. The areas that I went, it was strictly to eliminate them. I couldn't even really locate fish too much. Well, then Friday, my last day of practice, I was really hoping to get in there, kind of follow up on some of my areas, see if those fish were still there, and weather did not cooperate. It was extremely windy, extremely cold, and raining. I had my rain suit on, I had goggles on, and I attempted to go out there for 2 hours, but I didn't want to risk possibly getting sick for the tournament, but also getting my boat and my equipment just extremely soaking wet, where it made it very difficult on tournament day to fish. So I felt confident in my locations, where when I went into Saturday, I knew exactly where I wanted to start. I knew the areas that I wanted to hit up real quick, but my goal was to cover water, cover productive areas, locate those fish, and see if I can't get 5 bites. And in practice, every single bite that I had was above 3 pounds, and my biggest in practice was 4 pounds. So I was around the right type of fish. So tournament day hits. We are post front conditions, cooler weather temperature. We had 20 to 25 mile an hour winds with about 35 mile an hour wind gust. And I'm going to reposition the camera, guys, real quick, because I know the sun is right to my back, so I'm going to position it to the back of the boat real quick. So give me 1 second. Anyway, so going into tournament day, like I said, we had extremely windy conditions, 20 to 25 mile an hour winds with 35 mile an hour gusts. During the tournament, at one point, my co-angler almost got blown out of the boat because of how strong the wind was. But anyway, I knew where I wanted to start. My very first spot was towards mid to back of creek in Bull Run, so we'll give you the location. I wanted to catch him on a jerkbait. I wanted to catch him on a crankbait. I sat on my spot for about 8-9 minutes, couldn't get any fish to fire up. Oh, let me backtrack real quick. So we launched that morning, and as soon as I took that first turn out of Parkway Marina, the water was extremely rough. I sent the boat flying a few times. My co-angler was hanging on for dear life, and it shook some type of wiring up in my bow unit with my Mega Live, and my whole system went down. I got it to come back up, but the Mega Live, for some reason, it wouldn't read correctly, and it was very frustrating to try to get it to function. So when I got into my first spot, I spent about 10 minutes trying to troubleshoot it, and I knew right away I was going to be fishing without it. However, I did have the waypoints on my map, so I knew where to position the boat. Hopefully those fish were still there, but without the Mega Live, I really couldn't tell if those fish repositioned on those points and on that riprap, so I could actually target those fish directly. So I knew I was going to have to fish without that. It was going to be a little bit more difficult, but I knew if I at least just covered water fan cast, I could probably find them. Anyway, we started on my first spot. I spent about 8 minutes throwing jerkbait, crankbait, covered the entire point, could not get bit, and I was like, I know there's fish here. Where are they at? Did they move out deep? Because the drop off was about 30 foot. So I tried 30 foot, couldn't get anything there. And I was like, let me switch it up to a bait that maybe I could just drag across the point, which turned out to be a wobblehead. And so I slowly drug, and you've seen in the video, I threw it probably about 5 or 6 times. I was like, all right, last cast, I'm gonna move to my second point. And I caught my first fish, and I was like, okay, that's a key. Let's figure out what those fish are doing. And that turned out to be 11 pounds, 10 ounces, I believe. Or not 11 pounds, 10 ounces, 3 pounds, 10 ounces. And that was a really good fish. And I was like, okay, we got a good start. That was like 7:30, 7:40 in the morning. All right, the next few spots didn't have any wind, and they weren't productive. I fan casted with multiple different baits, couldn't get bit, and I moved to my fourth spot, which had some riprap, and I also had a point on it. Nothing on the riprap. I caught 2 fish in practice off that same riprap, quality fish. Didn't get anything. There was a point right across where the wind was hitting, and I just felt like there could be a fish position up against that point in the deep water. And after a few casts, for some reason my camera glitched out, so I didn't get the whole catch, but then I caught that big fish of the day, which was 5 pounds 11 ounces, which was my second and last fish of the day. What you do not see in that video is me running miles and miles of water. I covered probably about 20-25 points and about 2 or 3 miles worth of riprap. I did realize too late in the day that most of those fish that I caught in the morning would position on rocky points that had wind blowing directly on it, and where those fish were setting up is they were setting up in about 3 to 4 feet of water right up against where the deep hole drops off. So if there was deep water right up against that point, that's where those fish were sitting. And looking back at the footage and just thinking back of what I could have done better is, I think if I could have ran, chased the wind a little bit longer and really put myself in position to fish that productive water, I could have came away with more than 2 fish. I can't say I would have filled my limit because it was a tough bite, but later in the day, what you didn't see is me trying to go finesse and try to fish finesse against the riprap with drop shot, shaky head, smaller crankbaits, and I just couldn't get bit. And I was even just trying to get just a limit just of small fish because I knew a limit was going to go a long way. But anyway, guys, it didn't happen. Fishing goes like that. We live, we learn. And either way, my 2 fish went for 9 pounds, 5 ounces. Good enough for 50th, my first BFL. It's not as good as I wanted to place. You know, obviously you want to do better, but I think it's a good start to the season for how rough of a tournament that was. And yeah, I'm looking towards the second tournament, which is in May, I believe, on Kerr Lake. I do have some history on Kerr Lake. I'm going to be doing a lot more practice, locating some places I think could possibly get me at least a 5-fish limit, and then possibly put me in line to do very well in the tournament. And I do realize that it's going to be post-spawn, so those fish are going to be acting different. They're going to be a little bit smaller, and so going to be a tough tournament regardless. Guys, again, if you stay tuned to you know, kind of like my thoughts about what I did wrong, what I could have done better, or just kind of like how my day went, I appreciate you for staying tuned until the end of this video. And right now I'm actually on the Neuse River. I told you I had some more content coming, so stay tuned to my next video, which will drop almost immediately after this video drops. And we'll see how we do. I got about 4 or 5 hours out here where I could just throw around some baits, have some fun, unwind from, you know, tournament, and just put some fish in the boat, because I need a good fishing day. It's been a while, and yeah, thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned to my next video where I'm fishing on the Neuse River, and hopefully I land some. Till next time, appreciate you for tuning in.